Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. In this video I want to do a top 5 list of Walking Dead comic characters I would like to see in a Telltale style Walking Dead game. This list contains spoilers for both the Telltale games and comics, but first there are a few things I want to say. Number 1, I'm not including characters from the comics that have already appeared. So that means no Herschel, no Sean, no Glenn, no Pete, no Sadiq, no Jesus, or Michonne. Number 2, these aren't characters that I think will appear, this is characters I would like to see appear. And number 3, when I say Telltale Walking Dead game, I don't mean a season 5, it can be something like the Michonne miniseries, like a spin-off, or games in the same universe, but in the Telltale style. Now with that said, I'm going to be talking about a few honourable mentions, starting with number 4, Elodie. I know I said no characters that have already appeared, but Elodie is an exception, as she is a character that appeared in the Telltale series first, then the comics. For those that don't know, before the apocalypse, Michonne was married to a guy named Dominic. Together they had 2 daughters, Elodie and Colette. Eventually Michonne left them to focus on her career, and when the apocalypse began she tried looking for them but could never find them. For years this has haunted her. Eventually Michonne ended up at a place called the Commonwealth and found out Elodie was living there. Once Michonne found her, she asked what happened to Colette, and Elodie told her that after the apocalypse began, her, Colette and Dominic were together. Eventually Dominic died and Colette and Elodie joined a group. In this group, Elodie and Colette had to perform favours for protection. Colette couldn't do it, so they killed her. This caused Elodie to kill them all. At some point she found the Commonwealth and left a picture of her mother on the board of missing people in the hopes that someday Michonne might find it. Even though we know what happened with Elodie, it would still be nice to get to know Colette and Dominic more because we didn't see much of them at all. And next up we have number 3, which is Claudia. Now this will contain spoilers for The Walking Dead the Alien. Now with Claudia, if you've read The Walking Dead the Alien, you would know that at the end of the book she is on her way to America because she thinks there is a cure there, so it would be nice to see a game which explains her journey. And I won't go into much more details than that because I do want to get through the honorable mentions really fast. Now number 2 is Lily Call, and this will contain spoilers for the novels, but at the end of the final novel, which was Return to Woodbury, Lily and only a few people are left in her group, and she lost a leg at the end of the series, so it would be nice to see some closure on the group of Woodbury, like maybe building Woodbury back up to a proper community. And number 1 will be Ezekiel. Now the reason he's an honorable mention is because I think it'd be better to have Ezekiel in a comic, kind of like Here's Negan, instead of like a Telltale game, because I think it'd be cool to see Ezekiel get, see his life when he was a zookeeper, see Shiva as a cub, see him protect her. But it would be cool to have a game about it where, like, you have a tiger as a pet, especially because the Telltale games were originally going to bring a tiger into the story, but they thought it was too ridiculous, and then like Ezekiel showed up with Shiva and that happened. Anyway, those are my honorable mentions. I think now it's time to go on to the main list, starting with number 5. Magna and her group. Now, Magna was a character Robert Kirkman kind of hyped up as being like a major character, but he never really did much with her, so it would be nice to get a maybe more like a mini-series type game showing her, Yumiko, Kelly, Connie, Luke and Bernie before they meet the group. So I think a game like that where you play as Magna throughout the game, maybe they even try switching it up where you play as different characters. Maybe you even play as Bernie, because Bernie was the character that had like the least amount of time, so you could establish his character a bit more. And I think something like that could work out well. Anyway, with number 4, I think it would be cool to get one based on the princess. Now, this one I'm going to go into a bit more detail with. I think it would be cool to have Princess kind of be brought into a game in the way Jesus was, where she's not the protagonist of the game, but she's more of like a main character in the game. I think it would be cool because when the group found her in issue 171, she has been alone for quite a while, which is why she acted a bit crazy around them. So it would be cool to maybe even have a new group introduced into a game, and maybe this group throughout the game dies. Like your character dies by the end of the game, but at some point in the game you meet Princess, and maybe your character even starts a relationship with Princess. I think that'd be pretty neat because I don't know, I just think it'd be pretty neat. So let's say your character's main weapon of choice is a spear, and eventually if you see Princess in the comics, you know she's alone, and eventually she starts a relationship with Mercer. So you know the relationship between your character and Princess isn't going to last. Now, it would be cool if, like, let's say your character dies. Before you die, you give her the spear, and that's why she's so, like, if you read her first appearance in the comics, she's like, you know, I gotta get my spear. Now, yes, it's a useful weapon, but, you know, what if, like, one of the reasons she wants the spear with her so much is because that represents the character you play it as? I think it would be cool to have something like that be added to Princess, especially because Princess was a character introduced very close to the end of the book that they really didn't do much with, and I hope the show does a lot more with her. And I think a Telltale game would be a good way to flesh her out a bit more, get more story with her, and it could make the spear have more relevance in the story. Especially because The Walking Dead has given backstory and meaning behind certain weapons. Of course, Lucille is a big example of that. Anyway, next up at number 3 is probably the one that's, in my opinion, least likely, and that's Carl. Now, big spoiler towards the end of the book, but Rick dies, and at the end of issue 192, which is the second last issue of the series, which is the issue where Rick dies, at the end of the book, Carl says to Michonne he doesn't know if, like, he can keep doing this. And in the following issue, it skips ahead 25 years, and we see an adult Carl. Now, in my opinion, there is plenty of story there between issue 192 and 193, and I would love to see, like, maybe Carl, after they buried Rick, maybe he left the group for a while. Maybe he just wanted to be on his own for a little bit. Maybe that's why he eventually broke up with Lydia and got with Sophia. Maybe he connected with Sophia more. And I think it could explain some of the things in the final issue, like why he's with Sophia. Maybe Sophia is the person that brings him back. Maybe it shows that she was there for him when he needed someone. And not only that, but it would also be a cool way to establish Sheriff Kapoor. Now, in the final issue, I think there's a moment where Sheriff Kapoor, who is only in that issue, he says that him and Carl go way back. So it would be neat to see his introduction, how they know each other so well, and it could give more meaning behind that. And I think that would be neat. Now, number 2 will be Abraham, Eugene, and Rosita. I would just like to see a storyline about those characters before they met Rick's group on their journey. I would just really like to see that. Simple as, I don't know what they could have done in that time, but I would just like to see their journey in a game. Especially like a road trip game does kind of sound fun. And I don't know, I would just really like that. And number 1, I think this one is kind of obvious, but like, it just makes the most sense. It's gotta be Negan. Why Negan? Well, look, we had his origins in Here's Negan. He was introduced in issue 100, and he left the series in issue 174. And we even got to see what happened to him after issue 174 in the recently released Negan Lives. And, you know, at the end of that book, spoiler alert by the way, at the end of that book, he decided to go off and bury his wife. And in issue 193, which is his final chronological appearance, we see that he has already buried her. So Robert Kirkman has talked about how he ended Here's Negan in the way where it looks like there's going to be more issues, but it's a one shot, so there's not going to be more issues, because he thought that'd be funny. And maybe instead of having more comics explaining where, you know, like explaining Negan's journey, because Robert Kirkman did say, like, you know, some cool stuff could happen with Negan on the way to bury his wife. Maybe get a Telltale game, a Telltale mini-series where you play as Negan. I think that would do pretty well, because Negan is one of the most marketable, popular characters in the entire franchise, and I think a game where you play as him would gain a lot of interest from the fans, especially if it takes place after Negan lives and shows his journey to bury his wife. I just think something like that would be pretty fun, and that is pretty much all of my choices. If you guys have any characters you would like to see in a Telltale style Walking Dead game, say them in the comments. Thank you all for watching, and peace out.